Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt a man's gaze linger? Not because of what you wore, not because of how you moved, but because something in you stayed with him, long after you were gone. That haunting kind of presence. That's not charm. That's something far older, deeper, almost mythic. And Carl Jung had a name for it, the Anima. You see, many women try to become unforgettable by chasing attention, or shaping themselves into someone lovable. But true obsession, real psychological fixation, doesn't come from what you give to a man. It comes from what you awaken in him. And that begins with the first secret we're exploring today. Secret number 1. Mystery and the allure of space. Have you ever met someone who said very little, yet you couldn't stop thinking about them? Not because they told you everything about themselves, but because of what they didn't say. The space between their words. The pause after a glance. The smile suggested there was more you hadn't seen yet. This is the first secret to feminine energy that Carl Jung hinted at, not through dating advice, but through the very architecture of the human psyche. Mystery. We're not talking about playing games. We're not talking about being hard to get in the cliché sense. We're talking about psychological projection. When a man doesn't fully understand you, not because you're hiding, but because you're too multi-layered to decode at once, he starts filling in the gaps with his imagination. And what does he imagine? That's often more compelling than any perfectly packaged story. Jung once described this as the unconscious projection of inner desires onto another. When he can't pin you down, he's not just curious. He's projecting a part of his soul onto you. You become more than a woman. You become a symbol, not of what you said, but of what he longs to uncover in himself. That's why many men say things like, "I don't know why I keep thinking about her." Maybe you weren't the most conventionally beautiful in the room. Maybe you didn't text him back right away. Maybe you answered his question about your past, not with a story, but a quiet, "I'll share that when I feel safe enough." That isn't avoidance. That's presence wrapped in self-respect. And here's the paradox. The more space you leave, the more intensely he fills it. Not because you're withholding, but because you value your soul enough not to reveal it to anyone too soon. This is the mystery that lingers. This is the beginning of an obsession. Secret number 2. Strategic scarcity. The art of not always being there. Now let's build on that space. You've sparked his imagination, but how do you make that spark grow into fire? Scarcity. Not the artificial kind, where you pretend to be busy just to look cool, but real, grounded, unapologetic prioritization of your own life. Strategic scarcity means your presence is a gift, not a given. Jung believed the mind doesn't cling to what's logical. It clings to what oscillates between clarity and confusion, between sense and nonsense. And when you're always available, always texting first, always saying yes to last-minute plans, you become predictable. And predictability is the enemy of emotional intensity. Think about it. The man who knows he can text you at midnight and you'll answer right away, he won't be planning the next date. He'll assume there's no need. But the man who knows your time is precious because you respect yourself will treasure each interaction. Imagine, you're enjoying your Saturday morning, yoga, a podcast, and your favorite coffee spot. He texts, "Want to meet up now?" Instead of dropping everything, you respond, "I've got plans this morning, but I'm free after 4. That moment of gentle boundary, it plants a seed of respect. He knows now. You don't wait by the phone, you live. And if he's lucky, he gets to be part of that world, not the center of it. Scarcity isn't cold, it's sacred. Secret number 3, giving a man the opportunity to show. Once you've created space, mystery, and scarcity, what fills it matters just as much. And here's the surprising truth. A man only feels deeply attached to what he's had to work for. No one cherishes what comes too easily, not because they're selfish, but because, psychologically, effort equals investment, and investment builds value. Jung's insight here is sharp. What you resist not only persists but will grow in size. If you give a man space, not walls, but breathing room, he starts to feel that his actions matter. He has a role in your story, that he can step up, show up, and offer something meaningful. Most women think being low maintenance is attractive. And yes, there's beauty in ease. But if you never let a man help, contribute, or support, you deprive him of the very mechanism that bonds him to you. You don't have to demand, prove your worth. You simply have to stop doing everything for him. Don't always initiate. Don't rush to reassure. Don't immediately fix what's uncomfortable. Let him feel the urge to reach for you. When you need support, ask. Not because you're weak, but because letting someone in is a gift. A man becomes deeply connected to the woman who allows him to be useful and needed, even in small ways. Helping you when you're overwhelmed. Listening when you're unsure. Standing by you when you're uncertain. It's not about asking for favors. It's about letting him matter. Secret number 4. Emotional self. Mastery. Your center is yours alone. This brings us to a deeper foundation. Mystery draws him in. Scarcity makes him yearn. Opportunity makes him invest. But what makes him stay? Your center, and your ability to hold it. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." A whole woman, before she is chosen, is the rarest energy a man will ever encounter. Why? Because most people are waiting to be picked before they feel worthy. But not her. She doesn't need a good morning text to feel like she matters. She doesn't crumble when someone pulls away. She's not chasing after the next reassurance. Her emotional weather is not controlled by someone else's forecast. Modern psychology calls this emotional regulation. It's the ability to feel deeply, yet stay rooted. To love fiercely, but not lose yourself. When a man senses this in you, something primal happens. He knows you are not a girl hoping to be validated. You are a woman already walking her path. And he's either welcome to walk beside you or watch you from afar. That kind of calm confidence is rare. And men know it, they feel it, and they don't forget it. Secret number 5. The power of emotional contrast. Let's rewind for a second. We've already talked about mystery, strategic scarcity, the power of letting a man invest, and the importance of emotional self-mastery. But what makes you unforgettable? Not just respected, but emotionally burned into his memory? It's not your looks. It's not your accomplishments. It's not even how kind or agreeable you are. It's an emotional contrast. Let's break it down. Humans don't remember monotone experiences. They remember surges, emotional spikes, the unexpected, the unpredictable. The moment someone makes you laugh, and then, out of nowhere, says something so sincere it shifts the whole mood. That's the hook. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But for that to happen, there needs to be emotional electricity. That only comes from contrast. When a woman is always sweet, always nice, always available, she becomes static, comfortable, sure, but not magnetic. But the woman who flows between light and shadow, softness and sharpness, who can be playful one minute and quietly intense the next, that woman feels alive. And life, in all its chaos and beauty, is what the soul wants to experience." Here's the psychological truth. Contrast triggers dopamine, the brain's chemical for pleasure and reward. That's why we get hooked on roller coasters, drama-filled shows, or thrilling conversations. Because the brain craves variation, it's how we stay awake in the moment. So, what does this look like in real life? She teases him playfully over coffee, but then gets quiet as she opens up about her fears. Her voice slows, her eyes change. Suddenly, it's not just fun, it's real. He feels moved, disoriented even, because he was expecting amusement but got depth. And that depth, that's the part he can't shake. You don't need to act a certain way. You just need to feel your full spectrum and allow it to show. One day, you're laughing like a child. Next, you're fiercely passionate about something that matters to you. And the next, you're tender, raw, soft. All of it is true. All of it is you. A woman who lives her emotional truth without apology becomes unforgettable, because no man ever fully maps her. She's a journey, not a destination. Secret number 6. Being fully present. The anchor no one realizes they needed. But even emotional depth means nothing if you're not there. Not just physically, but spiritually, mentally, energetically. We live in a world full of noise, messages, updates, scrolling, and distractions. And most people are only half listening, half seeing, half feeling. So when a woman arrives in full presence, it's electric. Carl Jung once said that wholeness isn't just about inner awareness. It's about being fully grounded in reality. Imagine this. You're talking with someone. They're not interrupting, not waiting to speak, not zoning out. They're just there, eyes focused, body relaxed, responding not out of habit, but from real attention. At that moment, they make you feel like the only person in the world. That's presence. And when you offer that to a man, not to flatter him, not to get something, but just because that's how you move through life, you awaken something ancient in him. Men are not taught to express vulnerability. Often, they don't even realize they're suppressing pain or pressure until someone listens, really listens. And the moment they feel fully seen, not judged, not corrected, but felt, they open up. This is what behavioral psychologists call empathic resonance, the emotional alignment between two people. And it's rare. So rare that when a man experiences it, he remembers it for the rest of his life. Sometimes your silence is the most comforting gift. You don't always need to fix what he's sharing. You just need to stay with him, in stillness, in presence. That's what most men crave but never ask for. You become not just a woman, but an anchor, a safe place he never knew he needed until he found it. Secret number 7, finding joy in yourself. The quiet magnetism of self-amusement. And now we shift to something subtle but potent. What happens when you stop waiting to be chosen? When do you stop performing for approval? When do you stop seeking excitement outside yourself? You become magnetic. The 7th secret is self-amusement, finding genuine joy in your own company, your interests, and your moments. It's not about being independent coldly or rigidly. It's about delighting in your existence. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why terrifying? Because when you do, you no longer depend on outside validation. You no longer need to be liked. You start living from the inside out. And this is where real beauty begins. Imagine a woman who's laughing at a podcast while cooking alone. She walks through a bookstore humming softly to herself. She dances to an old song in her kitchen, not for Instagram, not for attention, but because she feels it. That woman shines, not loudly, but vividly. And when a man sees her, he doesn't think, "I need to impress her." He thinks, "I want to be part of that world." Social psychology shows that people are drawn to those who carry relaxed confidence, that effortless presence that says, "I'm good, with or without you." That energy isn't cold, it's centered. And most importantly, it makes you less vulnerable to emotional chaos. If he texts, great. If he doesn't, your evening is still beautiful. If he comes over, welcome him. If he leaves, you light a candle, pour wine, and watch the stars alone. You chose yourself long before he ever got the chance. And when you add all of the secrets together, these aren't tactics. They're reflections of wholeness. They're what happens when you live from your depth instead of performance, from essence instead of approval. And here's what Carl Jung knew all along. Obsession is not about possession. It's about the unconscious yearning for completion, for a symbol, for a mirror of one's unintegrated parts. When you live these secrets, not only do you awaken the anima in him, but you activate the wholeness in yourself. And that is the most captivating energy on earth. Let's step into the deepest current of all, the realm Carl Jung called the unconscious. Specifically, the part that lives inside every man and shapes how he experiences love, longing, and obsession. Jung called it the anima, the inner feminine image carried by the male psyche. It isn't built from real women he's met. It's not a collage of past girlfriends, mother figures, or even fantasies. No, it runs deeper. It comes from myth, from collective memory, from an ancient inheritance embedded into his soul long before he was even born. And here's the twist. When a woman walks into his life who accidentally mirrors this inner feminine, not because she tries to, but simply because she is, he doesn't just notice her. He falls into a kind of trance. He doesn't understand why she affects him so deeply. Why does her voice echo? Why her silence aches. Why does he keep checking his phone, replaying a glance, a phrase, a moment? Because it's not her he's obsessed with. It's what she awakens inside him. She becomes a symbol, not in a poetic sense, but in a very real psychological one. She activates a part of himself he hasn't fully explored. She becomes the door to his inner world. And once that door opens, logic doesn't stand a chance. Jung said it plainly. When the anima is activated, a man no longer sees a woman as an individual. She becomes a symbol. Now, that sounds romantic, but it's also dangerous. Because when a man confuses you with the image he's projecting onto you, he may believe he's in love, but he's chasing a ghost. This is why some relationships feel like cosmic explosions at first, and then spiral into confusion, chaos, or even heartbreak. He didn't love you. He loved the part of himself you unknowingly awakened. And when that mirror cracks, when he sees you as human, complex, independent, it shatters the fantasy. So what does this mean for you? It means you don't need to try to awaken the anima. You don't need to act mysterious, spiritual, or soft. You only need to be whole, real, unapologetically complex. Because the anima doesn't respond to perfection. It responds to authenticity. When you live all your contradictions, the softness and the edge, the laughter and the melancholy, you move like water, fluid, ever-shifting, never reducible. You become something the unconscious recognizes, even if the man himself cannot explain why. He feels seen, in a way he's never experienced. He feels understood, without words. He feels a desire that burns without a clear cause. This is not seduction, this is alchemy. So, have you ever wondered why wholeness triggers obsession? Most people think obsession is created by beauty, or sexual chemistry, or emotional vulnerability. And yes, those things matter. But obsession, the real kind, the kind that roots itself into the psyche, is created by something else entirely. Symbolic impact. When a woman touches the anima, she's no longer just a person. She becomes a story, a myth, a mirror. And he isn't just drawn to her, he's drawn into himself, through her. That's why men describe these women in surreal terms. She's unlike anyone I've ever met. I can't stop thinking about her. I don't know what it is, because it isn't about her. It's about the ancient feminine blueprint she activates. And here's what matters most. You don't activate it by being agreeable. You don't awaken it by being nice. The anima resists perfection. It only stirs when a woman is alive in all her emotional textures. She can laugh deeply, then fall quiet in introspection. She can be nurturing, then disappear into solitude without warning. She can be open, but never available on command. She is unpredictable, not because she's erratic, but because she honors all her truths, even the ones society says she should hide, and that makes her unforgettable. When he doesn't understand why he's drawn to you. This is the haunting part of Jung's theory. When a man is unaware of his anima, he becomes possessed by it. He projects it wildly onto women. He idealizes. He obsesses. He crashes. But when a man begins to understand this inner feminine within himself, something changes. He starts to differentiate between the real woman and the projection. He begins to love from a place of groundedness, not desperation. And the only kind of woman who can lead him into that awareness, the one who refuses to be the fantasy, the one who says, I will not collapse myself into your desire, the one who lives fully in her own emotional and spiritual rhythm. She may awaken chaos at first, but in time, she also awakens healing, because when he stops chasing the fantasy, he begins seeing her. And in that clarity, love, real love, can begin. And Jung had a warning for women. Jung was clear. If a man is unconscious of his anima, and a woman tries to become it, if she twists herself to fit his dream, she will lose herself. She'll start living for his gaze, for his approval, for his moods, and eventually, she'll disappear into the background of his life as just another projection that didn't last. But the woman who remains true to herself, even when he's enchanted, even when he projects, creates a different story. She becomes a guide, not a mirror. She walks beside him, not beneath him. She reminds him of something sacred, not because she pretends to be sacred, but because she treats herself that way. One important thing you need to know is the power of not performing. If you remember nothing else from this secret, remember this. You don't awaken a man's obsession by becoming what he wants. You awaken it by being who you are, entirely, courageously, and unapologetically. Not for his gaze, not for his validation, but because you've decided that your wholeness is the most beautiful offering you can ever make. And that offering, when received by the right man, it doesn't just captivate him, it transforms him. By now, we've peeled back the layers of what truly draws a man, not to your looks or your charm, but to your essence, your mystery, your presence, your emotional power, your sacred scarcity, your ability to live fully without needing to be chosen. But the final secret, the one that threads all the others together, is this. You must love your life enough that he wants to be part of it, not the center of it. This isn't a strategy. It's not detachment disguised as confidence. It's the very real, very sacred energy of a woman who finds joy in herself. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But what he left unsaid is this. Once a woman does that, she becomes unstoppable. Why? Because she's no longer searching. Not for love, not for meaning, not for external proof that she's valuable. She knows. And that knowing, that grounded radiance, becomes a gravity field no man can escape. Did you know that the light within that doesn't need an audience? Let's be clear. This isn't, "I don't need a man" energy. That's still a performance, still reactive. The woman who radiates this secret simply exists in full bloom, whether someone's watching or not. She laughs at a book on a rainy afternoon. She sings while washing her hair. She savors a piece of fruit like it's the first time. She walks through a street festival smiling at strangers, not to be seen, but because she sees. And when a man enters that space, he doesn't feel pulled to complete her. He feels invited to experience her, because she is already full. This is self-amusement, the inner joy of living, without needing to perform that joy for someone else's approval. It's not about having a perfect life. It's about saying yes to the imperfect one, and still choosing to celebrate it. Psychology tells us something simple but profound. People are most drawn to those who seem to generate their energy. In other words, the person who walks into a room and doesn't need anything from it, changes it. That's you. Woman is not a puzzle to solve, but a world to explore. When a man sees this, he feels something strange. He realizes, she doesn't need me to make her feel alive, but I feel more alive in her presence. And that's the kind of connection no man wants to lose. Because with you, he doesn't feel burdened by expectation. He doesn't feel tested, analyzed, or evaluated. He feels welcomed, not into a performance, but into a life. And the paradox is, when you no longer try to prove you're interesting, beautiful, or lovable, you become all three, effortlessly. Because nothing is more magnetic than someone who already loves the way they live. Let me know why you stopped chasing once you found yourself. This is the moment everything clicks. The emotional contrast, the strategic distance, the space you allow for his investment, the mystery you don't explain, the anima you awaken. They all become secondary. Because they all stem from one thing. You've chosen yourself. And when you've chosen yourself, there's no panic in silence. No despair when he pulls away. No addiction to being seen. You still go to work. You still cook your favorite meal. You still smile at the sky. You still dance barefoot in your living room because you want to. You don't wait for a message to feel whole. You don't shrink when he doesn't choose you. You don't lose your glow just because someone left. This is emotional self-reliance in its highest form. It doesn't mean you don't feel. You do. You grieve. You ache. You miss him sometimes. But your center? It doesn't collapse. Because it was never in his hands to begin with. You're the woman who cannot be replaced. In a world where people are trying so hard to be liked, to be perfect, to be chosen, you stand out by doing none of that. You're not trying to impress. You're not trying to convince. You're not tailoring yourself to what he wants. You're not afraid to be too quiet, too playful, too intense, too much. You've stopped asking, "Will he like me?" and started asking, Do I feel like myself around him? And that shift, that's what changes everything. Because you no longer chase love. You embody it. And that's when he can't forget you. Not because you did everything right, but because you did something no one else dared to do. You stayed true to yourself in a world that constantly asked you to change. Picture this. You are not a firework, bright, loud, and gone in a flash. You are a forest, still, deep, sacred, enduring. Those who rush through may never understand you. But the ones who stay, the ones who sit quietly under your branches and listen, they will never want to leave. Because your energy, your real, raw, fully lived feminine energy, is not a thing to be possessed. It's a world to be visited, a journey to be experienced, a home to return to again and again. And when you stop performing, you realize that everything you tried so hard to become was already inside you all along. And this is the final reflection. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." That's what this journey has been about. Not about changing yourself to attract someone else, but about waking up to who you truly are. Because once you do, you stop needing to make a man fall for you. You become the experience he never knew he was waiting for. You become the mirror that reflects his soul, the spark that stirs his unconscious, the presence that makes him feel alive in ways he doesn't even understand. You become the storm, the light, the shadow, the stillness, the one woman he never forgets, because he never fully figured you out. And maybe that's the point. If this journey stirred something in you, you already know it wasn't just about men. It was about you, about reclaiming the depth, softness, strength, mystery, and joy you may have hidden just to feel safe. Now it's yours again, and anyone who comes close enough to feel it is forever changed.